Here we are, we're driving the all-new 2024 Mustang Dark Horse, which is a pretty cool name, and it's pretty cool that Ford came out with an all-new performance model for the first time in over 20 years. The last one was the Bullitt Mustang. I actually had one of those, a 2001 Bullitt Mustang, but this is the Mustang Dark Horse. It's got the 5-liter Coyote engine that makes 500 horsepower and 418 pound-feet of torque in a very rich and wide torque band. Makes it very fun on roads like this. This one's got the 10-speed automatic, but you can get a Tremec 6-speed. I'm in LA, I just assume have 2 pedals in the floor, and this one does have paddle shifters right here that I'm using right now to downshift and get the most out of the car. Ford says this car can hit 60 miles an hour in 4 seconds or less, and it'll do the quarter mile in about 12.5 seconds. Obviously, we love the straight line acceleration in this car. All that torque and the sound of the engine when it's hitting its 7,500 RPM redline. Thanks again, Ford, for remembering the most important and compelling aspect of traditional muscle cars and keeping it alive. This engine makes a little more power than the Ford Mustang GT with the Performance Pack, and it comes standard with a lot of the same upgrades that package adds to the regular GT. That means things like larger sway bars, Brembo brakes, and 19-inch wheels with Perelli PZero tires. The Dark Horse name may be all new, but keep in mind, this car's sitting on about a 10-year-old platform. This car was last redesigned in 2015, truly. Now, it's got substantial updates, and I think the exterior looks pretty good, though the rear 3/4 panels have a lot of Camaro in them. Maybe Ford figured that car wouldn't need them anymore. I generally like the styling on this new Mustang. I think that chiseled effect that they've got on the rear end, where the taillights almost look like flying V's as they go down the road, quite cool. The front end still has the same design essentially that it had with the 2015 car, and the 2015 car represents what I like to refer to as the drunk pedestrian styling that all cars suffer from today. What I mean by that is that every car sold in Europe had to have its hood height elevated because of all the contact, as they used to say, between cars and pedestrians in Europe. I think there were a fair amount of drunk pedestrians in plazas and stadplazas and piazzas wandering out into roadways and getting hit by cars. And so they realized a lot of people were dying because of the rapid deceleration as their head hit the hood, and then the hood stopped because it hit the top of the engine. So all the cars starting in like the mid-2000s in Europe had to have a higher hood height to allow for more absorption of pedestrians who were getting hit in all these places. We know that the Mustang went international in 2015, starting to be sold everywhere, including in Europe. That was the year that you got this raised hood effect. So you can see how the hood kind of bumps up here and it sits higher, largely because it had to be sold in Europe and had to follow that rule. And I always feel like sports cars do much better, certainly look much better, when they have a compact, short, lowered hood that looks like it's meant to cut through air. But all the front engine sports cars sold in Europe have to have a high hood. By the way, this is why you see the massive billboard shaped grills on almost every modern car, because car companies can't afford to build one vehicle for one market. They have to build vehicles for all the global markets. So they all have to pass the European drunk pedestrian rule. So they all have massive grills now, including the Mustang. The Mustang, they actually tried to cut down the size of the grill by having the hood curve down, as you see here. But at the end of the day, it still has to slope way up, and it just looks higher than I think it should, and that's why. Too high hood aside, the Mustang maintains its long hood, short deck proportions that it's had for over 60 years. What's different about the Dark Horse is this is the first one that's ever had this head-on emblem instead of a profile like every previous Mustang. It's also got treatments like this darkened hood, roof, and trunk, and it's got these dark accents underneath the headlights. The new Mustang has seen substantial changes to its exterior, but it's really the interior where I think the most important updates have been made. Everything from this standard 12.4-inch digital gauge cluster to the optional, or standard in the Dark Horse, 13.2-inch central touchscreen. It's interesting how the two flow together, very Mercedes-Benz-like. This new central touchscreen houses dedicated climate controls along the bottom, plus access to Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and it does feature Ford's new Sync 4 infotainment system. It's also got a wide range of vehicle adjustments and personalization options. Another cool improvement for the new Mustang is this easy-to-grab emergency brake that synchronizes with a drift mode, making it very easy to drift the back of the car around. The folks at Ford fully admit that this new Mustang is meant to draw in a younger crowd. That's why it's got so many updates related to digital interfaces and controls. Thankfully, the most important control any modern car can have survived that change. I don't care what year you were born in. Volume knob is the most effective way to adjust that particular element of your car. There's really a lot to like here, whether it's the broad, deep torque band that this car's displaying, or the fact that it's got a great exhaust note, or really the fact that it exists at all. We live in a world where V8s have become like California condors or spotted owls, right? They're dying, they're disappearing, they're not available widely anymore. Kudos to Ford for not only continuing to put one in the Mustang, but really playing up its best traits. In this case, torque and noise. Ford says that the Mustang Dark Horse and all of the new Mustangs from 2024 on have a faster steering ratio, and they've been optimized in terms of their suspension for handling. That's good, and I can feel it when I go around these corners, and you know, I'm pretty happy that it's got as much steering feel that it's got. It does have electric assist power steering, but it's pretty good electric assist power steering. The Dark Horse also includes MagneRide active suspension standard, and you can feel it change the vehicle as you go through the different drive modes from normal to sport to slippery to track. The result is a responsive, surprisingly nimble, nearly 2-ton car. And that's really the unfortunate part of the new Mustang. Like so many modern sports cars and performance cars, it's drifting toward, if not outright, busting through the 2-ton curb weight. Now, you've got a lot of modern technology, whether you're talking active suspension, massive brake rotors, super sticky tires, that can help you hide the increasing curb weight of so many of these cars. But think about those same factors in a sub 3,500 pound car. They work just as well, and they do wonders when you're starting at that low weight, plus all that modern technology. Certainly, I do like the new Dark Horse Mustang. First of all, it's one of the few cars left with a naturally aspirated V8. This one looks great with all these styling elements, and despite its nearly 2-ton curb weight, it handles pretty well, and it's really quite responsive and confident on a twisty road. But I still hope there's a Mustang in the works on a brand new platform that loses at least 500 pounds. This car starts around $60,000, and it can get up above 70 if you option it outright. You can get a Porsche Cayman for about that same price, and it weighs 3,200 pounds, or even a Toyota Supra for less than what this car costs that weighs 3,300 pounds. And both those cars have about the same performance figures that this one does. With the 10-year-old platform, Ford will not be able to drop weight from this car effectively. And if they make any higher performance versions, I don't know, maybe like something called a GTD, it could easily weigh over 2 tons. Until we get an all-new ground-up redesigned Mustang, weight will be the challenge for this car. Let's hope one's in the works.